Okay. Well, let's go to our next story. Let's see, which one do I want to do? I'll do this one. Since we've been talking about the hostages, here's an interview with the Thailand's hostage negotiator with Hamas, and they are pressing the shit out of this man so that he speaks negatively about Hamas, and he doesn't break. So I congratulate him. I give him uh, a round of applause. He did a great job in this interview, and it shows that look, it's not just the very explicit anti-imperialist camp or the Muslim world that is very clearly not on the side of Israel. Um, it's countries like this whose hostage negotiators are unwilling to condemn the forces that the Palestinian people have chosen to represent them in an armed struggle against their occupiers. Okay, so let's give this a watch.
Have you heard from the Thai hostages that have been released? And if so, what have they said about their experience in Gaza?
คือผมไม่ได้พูดคุยนะฮะเพราะว่าทาง
I didn't speak to them. They're not allowed to speak with anyone outside their families until 48 hours after their release. But they've all told their families they were well taken care of, well looked after, given shelter, clothes, food and water, and given mental support.
What were you told by Hamas about the conditions that the Thai hostages were being held under?
คือผมได้รับทราบตลอดเลยนะครับตั้งแต่ครั้งแรกที่มีการพูดคุยว่า
Hamas told me they were prisoners of war, that they mostly lived in tunnels, but some stayed in the refugee camps, some stayed in houses.
Do you think the Thai hostages were being treated differently to the Israeli hostages?
ผมคิดว่าการดูแลตัวประกันทั้งหมด
No, I think Hamas kept the same standard because they follow Islamic law, especially protecting children.
Your group said early on that the Thai hostages were being looked after. Why were you so confident that was the case?
เพราะที่เราไปพูดคุยนะครับกับทางฮามาสเนี่ยผมได้
Our group talked to Hamas 5 times as representatives of the Thai House Speaker and leader of Shia Muslims in Thailand. On every negotiation, they confirmed to us that the Thais were captured as war prisoners and would always be treated according to the Quran and Islamic law. So I was confident Hamas would take care of the Thai workers. And you could see in the workers who were released, they had good interactions with Hamas.
เจรจาและพูดคุยกับฮามาสเนี่ย
Is this just all part of a deal that's been done with Hamas? They release Thai citizens and the hostages have to all say they were treated well.
ไม่มีครับฮามาสไม่ได้พูดอะไรเกี่ยวกับเรื่อง
When we negotiated with Hamas, they didn't give any requests or conditions for release. They just said,
She's basically asking him, like, did they force you to say what you're saying right now in order to get the hostages? This is so ridiculous, but he's fucking hitting it out of the park.
that the Thai hostages would be freed when there's a ceasefire.
But Hamas did kill at least 39 Thai citizens.
คือจากจำนวนตัวเลขที่รัฐบาลไทย
39 Thais were killed, that's for sure. But we don't know where or how. It's a war.
It is indisputable that families were murdered by Hamas on October the 7th. Why did you feel?
That's how you can tell that they know how shaky their facts are, because they're questioned just a little bit. They're questioned just a little bit, and the standard just keeps going down. Well, they killed 39 Thais. Well, maybe we can't prove that, but they killed someone. They killed some families. So if this is what leads me to think that a lot of these people, especially the ones that go in front of a camera and are the agents of creating consent, the people that the ideologues in charge of, manufacturing consent for these things. It leads me to believe that a lot of these people know what's going on, but are just lying for the sake of their paycheck and rising up the ranks. It's not an issue of ignorance. I don't think for a lot of these people, perhaps for like the vast majority of the population, when they fall into these ideas, perhaps it's a question of ignorance there. But for these people, it's not a question of ignorance. It's not a question of ignorance because she's standing there reiterating these lies. And as soon as he asks he replies very simply, it hasn't been confirmed. Did she say, no, it has? Look, here's where it has been confirmed. Here's the evidence behind the claim that I'm making here that is structuring how people are going to understand the interview. Here's the evidence. No, instead of doing that, she makes the standard of the claim that she's making even lower. Well, they might have not killed 39 Thais, but they killed someone. So it's very easy to see, though. It's very easy to spot, and anyone half competent realizes what they're doing.
So sure that they would protect hostages.
คือวันที่ฆ่าวันแรกนะครับวันที่ฆ่าวันแรก
Definitely, it is a war. There was killing on both sides, but the main point of Hamas going there was to capture hostages and to use them for deals to help the Palestinians.
Just to be clear, you're not denying that Hamas killed Israeli civilians, are you?
คือผมยืนยันตามคำแถลงของฮามาส
According to Hamas, they only wanted to kill Israeli soldiers, not civilians.
Are you sympathetic with Hamas's cause, and do you think that's in part why you've been able to negotiate the release of Thai citizens?
คือถ้าถามว่าผม
I'm sympathetic to the truth. Everything you fucking asked me, all I did was state the facts back to you, and you had to go to something new because you knew what you said was baseless. And then because I'm sympathetic to the truth, because I want the things said in this interview, in this dialogue, to be on the basis of what actual facts we have, because that's the position I take, then you ask me if I'm sympathetic with Hamas. That's the last straw. Well, we couldn't defend any of the absurd claims that we made. So let's say that this person, who all he's done is stated facts and questioned the falsities that I have put on the table, let's compare him, or let's associate him and his image with the people whom we have caricatured into being the equivalent of ISIS, the equivalent of Hitler. Character assassination. If nothing works, if he doesn't go along with your lies, if he questions your lies, there's always the good old character assassination via the association of him with Hamas through the consideration that he's a supporter of Hamas or sympathetic with Hamas. It's absurd.
ผมเห็นใจหรือเปล่านะฮะผมก็ต้องเห็นใจพี่น้องชาว
I sympathize with the Palestinian people. After more and more wars, their land was taken, and eventually Palestinians were refugees and made second-class citizens. You don't have to be a Muslim to have sympathy for Palestinians.
ชาวปาเลสไตน์
Why do you think you've been more successful than other nations like the Americans in negotiations?
ผมคิดว่าผมไม่ใช่นักการเมือง
I don't know. Maybe because the whole fucking reason why Israel exists and does what it does is to fulfill the interest of America in the Middle East. Just a thought, just some food for thought. Oh my God.
We went there to negotiate as normal people, not politicians. Hamas saw this. They saw us.
Oh my God, you're killing me, Watts. But surely Hamas is mixing their recyclables with non-recyclables. Yeah, they're doing that thing that the West and the US does, where they give you a trash can and the lid is divided in half, and then this side is recyclables, this side is non-recyclables, but when you throw it down, it's all the same garbage, and it all goes to the same place. That's what Hamas is doing. That's what we have to wage a genocide against the people of Gaza.
Us as Thai Muslims. We were people, not politicians. Hamas.
Like the Americans in negotiations.
ผมคิดว่าผมไม่ใช่นักการเมือง
We went there to negotiate as normal people, not politicians. Hamas saw this. They saw us as Thai Muslims. We were civilians, and that's why they decided to release the Thais. They promised that if there was a ceasefire, Thai people would be released in the first group. Now we can obviously see Thais are among the first citizens to be released compared to 20 other nationalities.
You went with a small group to Iran to have talks. We know Iran helps to fund Hamas. How critical do you think Iran was in helping to free Thai citizens?
คือผมยอมรับว่านะครับว่าหลังจากที่เราไปเจรจากับฮามาสโดยตรงผมขอเรียนอย่างนี้ก่อนว่า
I'd like to thank Iran, both the government and the people who have been supportive in negotiating with Hamas. They know Thailand has good relations with the.
This isn't me saying it. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. Joe Biden himself has said repeatedly, if there wasn't an Israel, we would have to create one. Even RFK, who is very close to some of the most fascistic Zionists in the US, part of the Israeli lobby, he has said it explicitly. We covered it in one of the interviews that he did. The strategic, necessary role that Israel plays for the US in the Middle East. The whole Israeli project, the construction of Israel, was a project of British and American imperialism. That is factual. 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 There's no getting around that. And the people from the State Department themselves admit that they need Israel. That they need Israel. That you know, they've shown this. Israel, and as Merschmeyer has put it, Israel and the U.S. are tied at the hip. They're basically the same entity. Basically the same entity. That's what a colonial outpost is.
The Islamic world and Iran. We spoke with so many high-ranking Iranian people. The highest ordered the Iranian foreign minister to negotiate with Hamas to help us.
What about the remaining hostages? How confident are you that they will be released, and when?
ผมหวังว่าตัวประกันไทยจะได้รับการปล่อยตัวเนี่ย
I hope they will be released in the coming days. But Hamas would like the Thai people and the Thai authorities to hear this message. The border area is disputed land and it's wartime, and Hamas will consider anyone who works there is working for the outlaws.
มากกว่า
They say they won't have time to look at the nationalities or passports of people on the land, but Hamas say it is okay to work in other parts of Israel.
Do you think that Hamas was justified in taking hostages from Israel?
คือจะถามว่ามีความชอบธรรมไหมต้องบอกว่ามีความชอบธรรม
Yes, because there are more than 6,000 Palestinians captured in the past and their families can't visit them. No one heard their cries. The world didn't hear their cries. That's why Hamas had to do this, to get the world's attention focused on Israel's treatment of the Palestinians.
There it is. The truth. Why did Hamas take hostages? Because there's thousands of hostages that have been held for years by the Israeli state. Shit, you can consider Gaza and the West Bank, but Gaza specifically, which has been described by Human Rights Watch and UN organizations as an open-air prison, by high-ranking Israeli officials themselves as a concentration camp. As a concentration camp. That's been confirmed by the UN, that the Palestinian people exist in an apartheid state. You can consider them in some form hostages. Norman Finkelstein, one of the most prominent anti-Zionist Jewish scholars out of the U.S., he can say, every time they ask him about the hostages and the hostage exchange, he says, yes, well, let's exchange the 2.3 million people in Gaza who are held hostage. Of course, they're blocked. They have nowhere to go. It's an open-air prison. It's somewhere from an open-air prison to a concentration camp. Those are the two terms that scholars frequently go to in order to describe the conditions at Gaza. Those are prisoners. So, but even excluding that, there's still tens of thousands of Palestinian people, a lot of children, held as prisoners, hostage, by Israel. So, no one was batting an eye. Nothing was being done about them. None of them were being released. So, Hamas understood it was necessary for them to have some leverage in the form of hostages so that they can have some of those people released. And, sorry to break it to you, it worked. So that's all this man is saying. That's pretty cool to see that at least some representative of states actually have some commitment to the truth.